I'm going to be reading the most trending books on booktok for an entire week. Now, booktok has become super popular. It is probably one of the most trending communities and hashtags I see on the app TikTok. So basically, I try to find the most popular books on TikTok right now, what has mostly been current popularity, but I did try to look at past videos from 2023, even 2022, just to try to gauge what the most popular genres were, what the trends were. It was kind of hard. There are a ton of books that people are reading, and like I said, it's such a huge community. It's very hard to find the books that are truly trending. Now, I have a lot of honorable mentions. Some of them I'm planning to do for later videos, which I'm very excited to do, and then some of them I didn't really want to pick up. I'm gonna be honest, my favorite genre to read is fantasy and mostly dystopian. So some of the books that are trending on TikTok I found are romance books. Now, I do enjoy books with a romance subplot. You will catch me on my Goodreads, which if you want to follow me on there, here is my tag. Go ahead, follow me if you are interested. So the whole point of this video is to see, are the books that are being talked about actually worth the hype, or are they not? The other thing I want to mention is that because we all have our different opinions and perspectives, I do want to say that I think that promoting a book on booktok, I think, is a wonderful opportunity. It puts the work out to a bunch of people, and I think that booktok is a great community for people who are trying to get back into reading, trying to get into reading, or just trying to expand their knowledge on a bunch of genres and a bunch of other books. So I don't think we should be too quick to judge booktok, but again, the whole point of this video is me judging some of the recommendations that people have put out, and we'll see. But while I am taking TikTok's recommendations with a grain of salt, I want you guys to take my opinions and my reviews that are said in this video with a grain of salt as well. By the way, this is Ray, and he's probably going to be a featured guest in probably all of my videos. I got this from a friend for my birthday last year, and I just think that he's so cute. I love him. He's a crocheted stingray, and I'm obsessed. And in case you guys haven't noticed, I kind of don't like stingrays at all, specifically manta rays. Like, bruh, ew. Fish. So the research for this video was not an easy one. I was really trying to search for the most current popular books, and then also books that span different genres. Again, like I mentioned, there aren't a lot of mystery books that are trending or thriller books. I see a lot of contemporary romance. I see a lot of fantasy, not the high fantasy, and I do see a sprinkle of dark romance, but that's all I'll say on that topic and genre. I also stopped by the library earlier today, usually a section in my library that shows the most trending books with the most popular books or the new books that they got in stock, and I looked through that. I did see Yellowface, which I know was a very popular book in 2023, but I haven't seen it a lot in 2024, and I don't think it's carried on from some of the most popular books in 2023 into 2024, so I kind of left it there. I also saw The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but I also decided not to put that on my list because while I see it in quite a bit of videos, it has not been talked about in 2024. I even went to Target and looked at their booktok section to try to see if there's anything that really stood out to me, any books, and I did get some ideas, but again, it was some of the things that I was already aware of. So I know you guys are probably all wondering, just get to the books. It is day one of reading TikTok books for a week, and I have chosen a book I could not escape on booktok or anywhere really. And that book is The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I got this book for Christmas last year, and I haven't even touched it since then. And I know in 2023 it was one of the most popular books. I've seen people say this book got them into reading or got them out of a reading slump, and I haven't been in a reading slump, but I have been looking for my next exciting fantasy novel. The last fantasy books I read were The Scarlet Veil, which was so good, and The Night Witch, which was also a really good read. But since then, I didn't want to start something too crazy because I was just finishing with my finals. I have very high expectations for this book, but I am very excited to see if people on BookTok have hyped this book up a lot and for good reasons, or maybe not. Also, I found out that there is a map. And one thing you need to know about me is I love maps. I think that maps in a book automatically boost your score. If I'm giving you a review and you get an extra 0.5, it's because you had a map. You can't have a fantasy novel without a map. And if you're one of those authors and you're writing a fantasy novel and you don't have a map, man, you're losing points. What I love about this is that there's a map in the front and a map in the back. Why am I getting so into it? Which means if I am halfway through the book, almost halfway through the book, and I'm in the front, and I'm like, oh, where are they at right now? I can flip and see. But say I'm almost towards the end, chapter 30, and I'm like, wait, where are they? I flip to the back, because why would I go to the front? And I think that's so smart. You know what? New category for when I am rating books. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate this map 8.5 maps out of 10 maps. Purely because the fact that it's on both sides of the books really boosts the score. I think it's cute. I think it's really pretty. I love the celestial. I love the dragons. But as a big map enthusiast, I love to see buildings on the map as well. It's very plain to me, though I see the mountains and I see the names of the places, and which I must say is very legible. I do love when there is good fonts and the colors aren't too jarring, but there is no buildings. I don't know specifically what a building might look like, and that might help with my visualization if I could see certain buildings in these provinces. That's just me being picky, but yeah, 8.5 maps out of 10. Kudos to you, Rebecca Yaros. I retract what I said earlier about the 8.5 because as I was about to start reading, I flipped to this page and saw a map of their college campus. And you know what, Rebecca, you get it a 10 out of 10. Okay guys, I'm a little over halfway of the fourth wing. Let me just say, I get it. I really do. I don't know what I was expecting going into this. I knew that it was going to be a fantasy and I was probably going to enjoy it no matter what. Again, I'm only halfway through. As you can see, it is nighttime. But I am halfway through, so I have to finish it to give you my final thoughts. But for now, it's going pretty good. Okay, it is the next day and I have roughly around 100 pages left of the book. I don't want to give my thoughts yet. I really want to just binge read this because it's raining outside and I love reading when it's raining. But yeah, guys, I get it. I just finished Fourth Wing and I would give this book around 4.5 stars. I definitely see why this book is so popular, and I definitely do think it deserves above a 3 in my opinion. To start off this book, the main character, Violet, is immediately thrown into this thrilling challenge and task that she has to do because her mother, who is a general, a very well-known general, has told her that she must be a dragon rider rather than a scribe. And she's been training to become a scribe for her whole life until a couple months back when her mother was like, no, you are going to take part in the trials to be a part of the dragon riders. So basically, immediately you were put into this world, you are put into this very exciting energy, and she has to complete a challenge that's basically life or death. I really like how this book started. It captured my attention and it kept me on the edge of my seat because you are already being introduced to this character, and you know she's not going to die because she's the main character in this case, but you can't help but start to root for her already. And as you continue with the book, you're being met with the same fight or flight, life or death situations and all the challenges and tasks that she has to complete before she is able to graduate. I do have to say, my favorite part of this book was the dragon element. I think that it was really well done on how we kind of developed the idea of getting to the dragons and connecting them to humans and connecting them to the main character. I thought the adventure was also pretty well done. I do have to say, I think it falls short on how some of the characters are developed. Quite a few characters in this book that I found myself rooting for, wanting to really get to know them. And I do have to say, the main characters kind of annoyed me. And it's definitely for a reason. There's some moments where, you know, like, we're not going to be perfect, and there's going to be some moments where they make a decision and it's not a good decision, or they say something and it's not something you should say, and that's just them being humans. But I do think that there is some plot holes and discrepancies with Violet's character as we go throughout the book. The romance for me was sometimes a hit or miss. One of my favorite romance tropes is, of course, enemies to lovers, but this book did not feel like an enemies to lovers, and it was advertised and marketed as such. I found myself binge reading this book for the dragons and the adventure. I definitely would not read this book going in thinking that there is going to be enemies to lovers. Being a little bit more critical on the book, as somebody who is an aspiring author, I also was on the lookout for not just reading it as a reader just for entertainment. I was paying attention to some of the sentence structures, some of the way the plot was developed, and I think that's also where this book fell short. When I was reading the book, sometimes the language was questionable at times. I don't think that she should have used some words in some places, and it kind of felt like a real person wouldn't say this, but it also felt like a book character wouldn't say this as well. Sometimes when we got from one thought to another, there would be a very big jump, a complete 180 sometimes, and that kind of took me out of the world for a little bit. But I do have to say, despite that, it is a good book, and I do recommend this book. I don't think this is overhyped, but I do think it's overhyped for the romance. BookTok, you've done your job. This next book I have chosen is something I see have a lot of mixed reviews on. I did find out that it was written in 2013, which could be a reason that I might see a lot of Wattpad influences in the writing. I definitely want to give it a try because it has been on a ton of lists. And this book is If He Had Been With Me. I'm trying to go into this book with a completely open mind, so I'm not going to talk too much about what I'm expecting yet, but I'm excited to see how this book does. Okay, so there is going to be a lack of content for this book because I'm reading on my phone, so that means I'm unable to film. However, I am 10 chapters in, and I am not liking this book so far. I did take a screen recording of all the highlights I have so far from the book. How I have it set up is the yellow highlights are for things that contribute to the story, so things I need to know, stuff like that. And the green highlights are some of the things I thought were okay, things that I thought I should look out for sentence-wise, choice of words. The pink are things I feel like don't sound right or I feel like are wrong, and for it being only 10 chapters in, that's a lot wrong with the book already. I don't want to DNF it because I'm trying to get the full experience, and sometimes I don't like DNFing books because I want to give the benefit of the doubt, but this is very hard, but we gotta keep pushing. I just finished the book If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nallin. I get that it's supposed to be a coming of age story and a little mundane, But this book had no plot. The perspective of the book is told in a flashback manner from the point of view of our female main character, Autumn. And Autumn is just going through her high school life, and it also is centered around with her relationship with her childhood best friend Phineas, also known as Finny, which is the nickname his mom and Autumn uses. So like I said, this book is supposed to be a YA coming of age story. It's supposed to be contemporary romance, and it's supposed to take you on a journey with this character as she discovers who she is and what relationship she has with her best friend and with other people. So we really tackle falling out in relationships, we tackle getting into new relationships, having the fear of committing to somebody, loving somebody. It touches on a lot of good things that need to be talked about at an age if somebody was reading it, but I also think that it was just not told in the way that it could have been told, in my opinion. I think that it lacked a lot of depth, and unfortunately that is why I did not like this book at all. I'm gonna be giving this book 2 stars. I think that while the characters were insufferable to me, they were still very real. Like, they still had their quirks, even if Autumn had to tell us every single second. I do like how they had their individuality. It made each character feel very different, which is good. Not one character had the same personality. And I think showing it in the form of flashbacks from the start of freshman year of high school to her graduating, I think was also a really nice timeline to see our characters grow and learn and become teenagers to young adults. A lot of the negatives outweigh the positives of this book, unfortunately. By the time I was like not even 100 pages in, I seriously wanted to DNF the book so bad, but again, I was trying to give it benefit of the doubt. I felt like I was just reading to finish it. I didn't feel like I was actually reading to learn the characters or to learn more about the story that was being told. That's another thing. You are constantly being told things. It feels very tell than show. And when I'm reading a book, I expect both sides. The book wasn't really that descriptive at all. I had to basically fill in the blanks on what I thought was best. And oh my gosh, when I tell you, I could not bear anything else that came out of the main character's mouth. The entire book was like this, but she would not stop talking about how weird she is and how quirky she is and how, oh, I like this and that makes me weird. Like, I totally understand, like, anybody could have their own preferences and what they listen to, what they watch, what are their likes, dislikes, hobbies. Like, that's just us in normal life. I don't understand why we had to reiterate that she did this, so she viewed herself as weird and other people viewed herself as weird. For example, this is very much a real passage from the book, and I just think that it could have been explained or developed way better than this. Let me tell you, this book felt like it was ripped out of Wattpad. It was in the Wattpad drafts, for sure. The short chapters, the very quick sentences, the lack of punctuation or misuse of punctuation, and for that reason, as a BookTok book, I think it is very overhyped. Alright, it is still day 3, but it is 11 p.m. and I wanted to get some reading in before I went to sleep. So for book number 3, I have chosen the book Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. This book has a lot of influence on BookTok. I know for a fact, if you look up a character edit or look up any fan art or anything that remotely revolves around a fictional character, you cannot escape the name Aaron Warner, and that is one of the main characters and the main love interest of the Shatter Me series. I found out that there are 13 books in the series, so if I want to continue, that's a lot to get through. Luckily, it's not too hard to read. The font size is pretty big. It's less pages than if he had been with me. So I'm really looking forward to binging this because it is also a dystopian novel, and you guys now know that I love fantasy and dystopian novels, so I'm very excited to give this a go. And yeah, let's see if I can get some reading in before I go to sleep. Okay, I'm a little more than halfway in the first book of the Shatter Me series, and I have to say, it's really interesting. And this story begins with a 17-year-old girl named Juliet, and basically she is in an asylum, a prison, where she has been for 3 years, and it's because of something that makes her different than other people. If she touches somebody, they essentially die, and because of her power, government, the higher ranking position, wants to use her as a weapon, and now she has to learn how to survive in this world while also learning about her power. This book is developed way different than anything I've seen. The first page, you are introduced with a Dear Reader message, and basically it says, "The strike-throughs in the Shatter Me books are intentional. The writing in the series is occasionally as erratic as the main character and serves as a visual representation of the chaos in Juliet's mind." So it's so cool to me because obviously you are learning about this story through her eyes, through her thoughts. So when they cross it out like this, it's really cool because it shows what is going on in her brain, learning her true thoughts of what she's actually thinking, but without breaking the thought too much. Hey everybody, it is day 5 and I actually finished this book last night, but I forgot to film my thoughts. I'm gonna be giving Shatter Me a 3.5 stars out of 5, and here's my reasoning. So this book was written around the time dystopian was a huge genre. I mean, this book was competing with the Legend series by Marie Lu. It was competing with Divergent, it was competing with Hunger Games. This book is a great YA intro into dystopian, but for me who has read so many dystopian books, this just felt so short, and especially since one of my favorite series is the Hunger Games, you know, I have to compare to my favorite series. And do I think that this book is probably going to be developed better than all the other books? Yes. Did it really leave me speechless? No. Like I said for my thoughts yesterday, I do enjoy how we get a new perspective into her thoughts and her character, but in the beginning of this book, you're told it's a dystopian world, but you don't really get further than just saying, this is what the setting looks like. I wanted to know more about why this world was the way it was. Also thought that this book's pacing was very off. So overall, am I going to read the other books? Probably yes, but I'm not excited as I thought I was gonna be because this book was kind of a letdown for me. So this is when we answer the question, do I recommend this book? And that's a tricky answer. If you've never read dystopian, you want to get into it, I would say yes. If you are in the YA demographic, I am closer to the new adult demographic than YA, but I still read both sides. But if you're closer to the YA, like if you're a teenager and you want to read this book, I would say yes. If you are like me, who has grown up with dystopian books, this is going to be a letdown for you, so I would say no. But again, take my words with a grain of salt, and if you want to read this book, I would say give it a try. I definitely want to see if this rating is going to change for me throughout the other books, and I'm excited to see. But yeah, it was a letdown, so I would have to say this book is overhyped. The next book that I'm going to be reading, book number 4, can you believe we're already on book 4? is going to be a book that was also released in 2023 and I think was competing for, maybe it wasn't in competition, but it definitely was one of the top books that had to compete with sales of The Fourth Wing, and that book is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This book is a YA fantasy, so I'm very excited to get into this. I heard it's enemies to lovers and I heard it's about a prince, so I am already so excited. I think this book has definitely earned its title as a popular book talk book, especially this year because she just released her second book called Reckless, and I know she has a third book coming next year. I have seen a couple of her videos on book talk before, but I haven't really delved into it any further than that. I'm also going to be reading this book on my phone, so there is going to be a lack of filming, but I will come back and give you my thoughts around halfway through so that you guys aren't left in the dark. But you know, I'm very excited, so let's read our fourth book. Guys, I'm gonna be honest, a month has passed since I started this video. A whole month has passed and I have not touched the book since. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was genuinely very set on completing this challenge within a week, except life got in the way. I went to Canada, I saw ATs, I did a whole bunch of other things, and now school has started again. If there's one thing that I want to be when I'm creating these videos is genuine. I want to be honest about my thoughts about the books that I'm reading, my reviews, and I also want to be honest about my book habits and like who I am as a reader and a writer. And I did not want to fake that like, oh yeah, I read it in a week, because clearly if you look at me, my hair has grown so much in the past month. So you would have noticed something was off about the clips. So it's just better for me just to be honest and just say it like this and tell you that a month has passed. So if today is technically day 6, I'll have 2 days to finish Powerless or to finish this challenge. So that counts today, and then it will count tomorrow as the last day of reading book talk books for a week. For the next upcoming videos, I'm gonna try and push for, if I say I'm gonna read these types of books in a week, I'm gonna try to push for an actual week. But unfortunately, again, like I said, I'm sorry, life got in the way and there has been a huge jump since then. So it's not a proper week, but we could call it like a book week. Without further ado, I'm going to jump back into Powerless and I'll come back with my thoughts when I am kind of halfway through the book. Okay, I'm halfway through the book and I'm not gonna say I truly hate the book, but I don't love it. At this point in time, I have gotten to know some of the characters, have gotten acquainted with the world building, the plot line, but I'm not into it. There is a lot of inspiration when I'm reading this book from the Red Queen. The naming of the people with the magical powers is very much like the Red Queen. Instead of giving it a crazy name or a name that just like, oh yeah, these are people with their magical powers, we have like people who can control lightning are called Volts. People who are strong are called Brawny. People that can control water are called Hydros. People that are quick are called Flash. Like, oh, it irked me so much in the Red Queen series, and it's coming back to haunt me in Powerless, and it's putting me off. It actually is. I don't mean to hate on book talk right now, but I'm seeing a trend. This book feels like the Fourth Wing romance with the vocabulary and sentence structure of If He Had Been With Me, and like the plot and the pacing of the Shatter Me series. I don't know what's going on, but there seems to be a certain type of book that is being recommended. Don't get me wrong, I am gonna finish this book. I am gonna give you my thoughts, of course, but I am not really loving this book as much as I thought I would, and that's a bummer for me. But we're gonna keep going. I will see you for day 7, where we will finish the book together. Alright, it is the afternoon of day 7, and I have just finished the book Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I'm going to be giving this book a 3 stars out of 5, and that's me being a little generous. The book is about a plague that has swept the kingdom, which resulted in leaving some people with powers and some with no supernatural abilities at all. And it's split between the elites, those with powers, and the ordinaries, those without any powers. The king of this kingdom wants to banish all ordinaries. It's basically survival of the fittest in his eyes, and he thinks that the ordinaries have no place in society. The book is centered around basically 2 main characters. It is told in dual point of view. The female main character, Peyton Gray, is someone who was born without any abilities. She is known as an ordinary. And the male main character, his name is Kai Azar, and he is the prince of this kingdom. He is known as the enforcer of the kingdom, who basically gets rid of ordinaries, and he has the ability to take any supernatural ability that's in proximity to him and use it for his advantage. The book is centered around the purging trials, and there's supposed to be one winner who's supposed to bring a bunch of honor to themselves, their family, and to the entire kingdom. For this being Lauren Roberts' debut novel, I did think that it was okay. I did think that it was entertaining, but I think there was a lot wrong with this book, in my opinion. I didn't enjoy her writing style at all, because I think that she was trying to put so many different types of elements, so many book romance tropes into one whole story. The writing felt very cliche. It's something I mentioned with Fourth Wing, where it felt like people in real life wouldn't say certain lines, even more so book characters wouldn't say these types of lines. The same thing happened in this book. Me personally, I have no hate towards dual point of view. I think that it can be very exciting to have multiple point of views in a book. But it becomes an issue when you're reading one chapter told in Pei's point of view, and you're being told a situation, an event, and you're being told from her thoughts and her perspective, and then you go to the next chapter and it's from Kai's point of view, and you're being retold that entire event from his eyes. At times it makes sense to retell an event from another point of view, but the author was doing this almost every single time. And to me, I think that there should still be a sense of mystery, the sense of the unknown when we're reading about what a certain character is feeling for another character, or what their views and perspectives are on certain situations. So when I was reading all these parts of the book, especially during the trials where there is the most energy, the most suspense, the most action, it didn't hit as hard as I thought it would. It was very uneventful when it came to some of the fights, because we had already known what had happened in the fight before, but it was being told from another person's point of view. Another critique I have on the writing style, I think that she overused a lot of juxtaposition and parallelism, a lot of repetition in the writing as well. Whether that was repeating lines that were already said in the chapter again by another character, or it was the many cases of using the same words to describe something. For example, Kai would always mention her ocean eyes. And I understand that you don't always have to be like, oh, this character has blue eyes, or this person stared into their eyes. You of course can use descriptive language, and you can dive a little bit more into it. Sometimes the author would use certain things that were blue, mostly water, to describe a character's eyes, and that is okay. But it's when you use it almost every single time you mention the other character's eyes, that's where I feel like it becomes a problem. Because you hear it so often, you kind of lose its significance of, this is why this character loves their eyes so much, or this is what this moment feels like when the other character is staring into their eyes. There was also many cases where you would get the very cliche lines of, I bumped into something, or someone. And it didn't just happen once, it happened multiple times, and the author had to reiterate that it wasn't something she was bumping into. She was bumping into Kai, or she was bumping into another person. And I just think that like little cliches like that is fine a couple times in the writing, but constantly it becomes an issue and it kind of takes you out of the world. And of course, we must mention this. There was a lot of grammar mistakes and punctuation errors. This seemed more of an editor job rather than Lauren's fault, with the intention that this book is going to be published not on Wattpad or AO3. I think it should have been read through and edited better, where you would have caught some of these mistakes, because it didn't just happen a couple times, it happened many times, and it kind of made me wonder, did an editor actually edit this? I think there were many plot holes and things that could have been developed so beautifully if we didn't get caught up in maybe so many different types of elements, so many different types of tropes, trying to get so many different hard-hitting lines and focused more on the plot and the world building and developing of a scene rather than the dialogue. I felt like it would have been so much more interesting and entertaining. I do have to say, this book was also advertised as an enemies to lovers romance, and there was no enemies to lovers. So that was also a bummer, because I actually thought that we'd get a little bit more of an enemies approach, especially since Kai is supposed to be almost an assassin. He's supposed to be somebody who kills a lot of people, so in that case, he would be more of a villain in her eyes, especially since he is killing ordinaries, and she is an ordinary. I personally don't think that this book was for me, and I will not be finishing the series. For me, I think that this book was overhyped on TikTok. I just read 4 of the most popular books that were trending on BookTok for an entire week, and those were my thoughts. I believe Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros earned its title as being hyped for the right reasons on BookTok. I do believe that this book deserved its 4.5 stars. I'm still debating on the rating, but I do think that it was an entertaining book and you guys will enjoy it if you're looking for a fun read. The book, If You Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin, I think was completely overhyped and I gave it a 1 star. This book might resonate with some people, but me personally, I don't recommend it at all. The third book we read was Shatter Me by Tahire Mafi, and I do think that this book was overhyped as well. Finally, Powerless by Lauren Roberts, I think was overhyped, and I gave it a 3 stars. 1 out of the 4 books I would say is worth the hype and I would recommend to somebody. I had higher hopes for BookTok, but who knows? Maybe I'll be back asking BookTok for some of their recommendations again in another video. And on that note, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed learning about me and my writing and reading journey, be sure to subscribe if you'd like. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and I can't wait to see you guys again in the next video. Bye!